All right, so the game plan is we're going to be going through each battle, quickly voting, and we're not going to get distracted. I'm going to talk about the battles. I'm going to decide on my battle of the week, and that's my plan for right now. Okay, so we're going to start off with curators verse. I'm just going to read each verse as I go. So you can hear how I approach reading them. I'll give comments. Dining on esophagus like we would octopus, human flesh, bloodlust, gelatinish cartilage. This Alucard dwells on upon rest. Pure blood, bright as Vesper, vampire with no temper. He just slaughtered a village on a whim. Brilliant strength of giants, claw Simba. How many gullets have I drunk today? How much sinew was tender? Goblets on the timber, skulls in the cinder. Corpses for dinner, whores mangled, grind deers. I guess grindeers I'm not really sure. That was kind of a weird thing. I get what you're saying, the whores, deers, uh but I'm not sure. He never does this, but sometimes when being prince it slips. Snow drips on blood-soaked boots. A bloodsucker stares at grayness after loot. The scene complements the prior debauchery and slaughter. Sons, sisters, daughters, some throats were faucets. The reddest waters, zombie porters, of course, yes. Playing flutes with spines like the piper. Blood makes vampires high as kites, more than the crystal pipe, sir. Christ crucifix inverted, Alucard a serpent, 7-footer ox get uppercut through bullocks. That's eternal rest, not lurching. No stress sliding through the hamlet. Sword hovers above wrist. No final master in this mess. This is no TV game, just profligate. Death, and with this with ease, arbitrary dice, plastic, odds far greater than evading the tragic. Not even a need for scarlet magic. I'm rabid, mutters Bloodlord as he lucidly gazes the placid waters. A genius on a spree, savage though damaged. Imagine contemplating, now in a sober state, scores of innocents decomposing their fate. The guilt stings, the prince blinks, the curse and power rings. He collapses as the pain lingers. For Alucard's no god, just a ghastly figure. Humanity grips him, nervous system in vigor. All this after masses were binged. Now only the rats with him sing. This from fat slurped on sinks, perched from a black-hooded mink. He'd like to shape-shift into the Sphinx, disappear to Egypt in a wink if he could, but alas, his home is Europe. He made a vow, never again shall I exterminate the collie. As he stares into the heart of the melancholy, he begins to wonder what happens after the respite. Yes, feeding, the corollary. Okay, so I'll read Gideon Grimm's, and then I'll give my thoughts on both. The murderer and the thief who insulted Jesus Christ. Macabre and morbid, like a blood-red orchid. The heart that's forbid is mine, a barren find. Thought plants importance on debts unreported, so to rot grants in your sense a fair incline. Lust, lust nails trace valleys upon upon my skin in red. Entrails quivered as these drops entice the fed. She hails the blade with screams that rattle my head. Like scales from Paul's eyes, hands drop from arms instead. I imbibe the coppery note from her throat. It incites a debauchery most misquote. For me it has been about my heartless soul. Stories of passion, a profound lies artist stole. Her pretty cleaved heads in the bag at my feet, along with the last squeezed dregs of blood so sweet, in a wineskin that reeked of deaths I'll repeat. Her body is thrown in a pile steeped in heat. That's not snow falling, it's ashes of burnt flesh. I hear her soul calling out my impure debts, as I envision her fangs that never mesh, twist with precision a missive inner threats. Though she haunts my dreams, my heart it esteems strength. Low-hewn trees flaunt the means to my own weak faith. I'm the seed among the rocks, killer of thoughts. I'm Neakos, twin to Thomas, sold for lots. I am a weak promise placed on a thief's cross. So it was dope. One thing I want to check is word counts for you both, because it seemed that Curator's verse was significantly longer than Gideon Grimm's. Now, I'm not sure the reason for that, because I would guess that Gideon Grimm went well under the line limit, rather the word limit. Because I don't, let's see, we've got 8, 12, 16, 20, 24 lines. Even as like a conservative thing where we said 32. Yeah, 221 words. It definitely, like, it feels shorter. I mean, I really enjoyed a lot of the rhyme schemes and a lot of the content. I think it was clean, precise writing, whereas Curator kind of went a more I guess a more dense style, which I'm pretty sure he did use the full 368 or whatever. I would estimate his is probably about that. Let's see, 342. Yeah. So, I mean, you can definitely see that. You can feel that there's that length difference. Dining on esophagus like we would octopus, human flesh, bloodlust, gelatinous cartilage. This Alucard dwells upon rest. I think in terms of just smooth, easy to handle multis, Gideon Grimm, I think took this category. He had some nice alliterations throughout. Um, I definitely like. I saw alliteration at least in Curators, but definitely less than Gideon Grimm. So in that regard, I can't really say that's it. I'm not, you know, I guess I could see the topic use, but I'm really not entirely convinced by the topic. Wait, why was OBS not able to use my camera? Pretty sure it was. So that's very strange. Okay, whatever. So I don't know. I feel like Gideon Grimm had the stronger connection to the topic. Because I mean, he at least, I don't know, he at least mentioned it. That's not snow falling, it's ashes of burnt flesh. So he at least, references it. Whereas, I mean, all I can really see is like it's a lone character, but I don't necessarily see like a vampire here, and I don't necessarily see, what happens in the story in that image. I don't really see the snow. I don't see any of that. I see the home is Europe. That thing. I guess that could be referencing it, but I don't know. It's just I would say that's one thing that I notice is that it seems like the topic was less obvious here than here, because I mean, at the very least, Gideon Grimm, threw something in there. My apologies for yawning. I'm quite tired, but I did promise that I would record these today, so I'm gonna get it done. I'm really not sure. Gideon Grimm does really well with the lines that he has, but there's definitely an imbalance in terms of like content as a result. So pound for pound, I'd say Gideon Grimm had the better verse, but it's hard to say that it was necessarily better than the extra 120 words that Curator was able to use to develop his character, and all that, this Alucard and all this. I mean, it's really tough to make a decision in this regard, because man, like, you guys both wrote solid verses, but I really find myself wanting to vote Curator. Uh, Even though I would say that Gideon Grimm, like if you were to compare 220 words of Gideon Grimm versus 220 words of Curator, I think Gideon Grimm would be walking away with the win. But it's really tough, man. Like I don't know why he went 220 words. You know, when we had 368 as our word limit, it's kind of strange and it's almost self-injurious because you know you're robbing yourself of that ability to have some more expansion, you know, more detail, all that stuff. So I mean, it's really tough for me. This is honestly a coin flip. The Baron find thoughts. Thought plans importance on debts unreported, so to rot grants a sense of fair and climb. He was doing like some ABAB rhyme schemes. Macabre and morbid, like a blood red orchid. The heart that's forbid is mine. A barren find. Thought plants importance or yeah, thought plants importance on debts unreported. So did rot grants in your sense of fair incline. Lust snails trace valleys upon my skin in red. Entrails quivered as the drops entice the fed. He hails the blade with screams that rattle my head. Like scales from Paul's eyes, hands drop from arms instead. I imbibe the coppery note from her throat. It incites a debauchery most misquote. For me, it really like this whole thing, I imbibe the coppery note from her throat. I feel like they both kind of went for vampire here. For me, it has been about my heartless soul, stories of passion, profound lies, artists stole. For pretty cleaved heads in the bag at my feet, along with the last squeezed dregs of blood so sweet. In a wineskin that reeked of deaths I'll repeat, her body is thrown in a pile steeped in heat. That's not snow falling, it's ashes of burnt flesh. I hear her soul calling out my impure debts as I envision her fangs that never mesh. Twist with precision, a missive, enter threats. See stuff like that, like there that was definitely the most rhyme heavy and internal heavy section of the verse, and it was definitely heavier than anything that's I remember seeing in curators in terms of pure density. So it's hard, man. Like you guys, like Gideon, why didn't you write the full verse? Like I just don't understand, because I mean, with more words, this would be a close and shut case. You know, open and shut. Though she haunts my dreams, my heart at its steam strength. Low-hued trees and the seed among the rocks, killer of thoughts. I am Neokos, twin to Thomas, sold for lots. I'm a weak promise placed on a thief's cross. So what we got age down here. Uh so one thing that's kind of stressing me out here is that I feel like Curator, I mean, obviously had good story elements, but Gideon Grimm's felt more like natural as a story, if that makes sense. And it's kind of hard to discount that fact. Like because I mean it's definitely like a cleaner, sweeter story. Whereas I feel like Curator kind of like went a little overboard in trying to like flesh out and really like use I don't know. I don't know, man. Like there were really good lines in Curator's vote, like vampire with no temper. He just slaughtered a village on a whim. Brilliant strength of giants. Claws Simba. How many gullets have I drank today? How much sinew was tender? Like these are odd lines, um, but I mean they're good. Like I just I'm so bothered by the fact that that Gideon Grimm had so much a shorter verse. Um, Collapses as the pain lingers. For Alucard's no god, just a ghastly figure. Humanity grips him, nervous system and vigor. All this after masses were binged. Now only the rats with him sing. This from fat slurped on sinks. Oh man, Gideon. Gideon, if you had written your full allotted lines, your word count, like you would have won this battle, I think. But I, I have to vote for Curator here because Curator had a very good verse. It was strong in terms of multis. I just feel like there was more bulk to it, more that weighed it down. Like there were more sort of awkward pauses and awkward lines, like like but some of them were stylistic, like for example playing flutes with spines like the piper. Blood makes vampires high as kites, more than the pipe, sir. Like that's I like that stylistically. um but there are odd things like he made a vow, never again shall I exterminate the collie, as he stares into the heart of melancholy. Like that's it. Just you have the exterminate the collie. You know, my words erase the folly. Right? Exterminate the collie. Words erase the folly. See, like it just kind of like messes with me a little bit when you set up exterminate the collie and you have this really good multi-chain, but then you only take part of it, and because of the parts that you took, you only ended up rhyming just the collie, right? Like melancholy collie, because you have exterminate the collie, melancholy. You see, like, whereas you have the erminate, the menate, melon, right? Minnate, melon. You can see the minate, meh, like they're very similar. So that's like a partial internal rhyme, and you can see that there's more going on, but at the same time, like there were these like little bits of awkwardness, like I don't know. That's at least my feeling here. Uh, Gideon, like I really hate that this verse was shorter, because like you have a lot of good content, but like I'm trying to judge based on what I'm seeing and like the strength overall, of what I've seen. And while like the shorter verse, it definitely works. Like your shorter lines are smooth, they're crisp, they're precise. Most of them are pretty accurate in terms of how I expect the rhythm and the cadence to go, but you definitely had less detail as a result of the shorter uh, word count. So it's really tough for me. Macabre and morbid like a blood red orchid. The heart that's forbid is mine. See, forbid there, like it's awkward. The heart that's forbid is mine. A barren find. So plant some portents, because now you'd have to say it like morbid. Importance. You see what you do when you do these kind of twisty rhymes. On debts unreported. So to rot grants in your sense a fair incline. Lust snails trace valleys upon my skin in red. Entrails quivered as these drops entice the fed. Beheld the blade with screams that rattle my head, Like scales from Paul's eyes, hands drop from arms instead. I imbibe the coppery note from her throat. It incites a debauchery most misquote. For some reason, misquote makes me think mosquito, and you have this here, uh, which is kind of, maybe it was intentional. I don't know. I'm just not sure. Her pretty cleaved heads in the bag at my feet, along with the last squeezed dregs of blood so sweet, and a wineskin that reeked of deaths I'll repeat. Her body is thrown in a pile steeped in heat. See, like these are things that a mosquito can't do. That so definitely not. That's not snow falling; it's ashes of burnt flesh. I hear her soul calling out my impure debts as I envision her fangs that never mesh, twist with precision and missive inter threats. Though she haunts my dreams, no apostrophe here. Um, my heart it esteems strength. Low hewn trees flaunt the means to my own weak faith. I'm the seed among the rocks, killer of thoughts. I'm Neokos, twin to Thomas, sold for lots. I'm a weak promise placed on a thief's cross. This is really tough because Gideon, like you have a really good verse, dude. Like there's no denying it. Dining on esophagus like we would octopus. Human flesh, bloodlust, gelatinish cartilage. This Alucard dwells on, upon rest, pure blood, bright as Vesper, vampire with no temper. He just slaughtered a village on a whim, brilliant strength of giants, plus Simba. How many gullets have I drank today? How much sinew was tender? Goblets on the timber, skulls in the cinder, corpses for dinner, horse mangled, grinders. Oh, that man. Alright. He never does this, but sometimes when being prince it slips. Snow drips on blood-soaked boots. A bloodsucker stares at grayness, after loot. The scene complements the prior debauchery and slaughter. Sons, sisters, daughters. Some throats were faucets. The reddest waters. Zombie porters, of course, yes. Playing flutes with spines like the piper. Blood makes vampires high as kites, more than the crystal pipe, sir. Christ crucifix inverted. See, like there's a good deal of alliteration here, where you have like Christ crucifix, Vesper vampire, blood bright, all of this. There's definitely elements there. Alucard serpent, 7-footer ox, gets uppercut through bullocks. That's eternal rest, not lurching. No stress sliding through the hamlet. Sword hovers above wrist. No final master in the mess. This is no TV game, just profligate death, and this with ease. Arbitrary dice, plastic, odds far greater than evading the tragic. Not even a need for scarlet magic. I'm rabid, mutters Bloodlord as he lucidly gazes the placid waters. A genius on a spree, savage though damaged. Imagine, contemplating, now in a sober state, scores of innocents decomposing their fate. The guilt stings, the prince blinks, the curse and power rings. He collapses as the pain lingers. For Alucard's no god, just a ghastly figure. Humanity grips him, nervous system and vigor. All this after masses were binged. Now only the rats with him sing. This from fat slurped on sinks, perched with a black hooded mink. He'd like to shapeshift into the Sphinx, disappear to Egypt in a wink if he could. But alas, his home is Europe. He made a vow. Never again shall I exterminate the collie. As he stares into the heart of melancholy, he begins to wonder what happens after the respite. Yes, feeding. The corollary. I don't not let's look up just specifically the corollary. Perhaps you have some particular you know intent in mind with that corollary line. I guess we'll find out in a moment. I'm gonna look it up. I think at this point, I basically decided, like, unfortunately, Gideon Grimm's verse it's significantly shorter, doesn't give me as much to chew on. Curator does. He even had room to write more. Um, but I think both did well. I found myself getting more fatigued with Curator's verse, but at the same time, that's it, it's probably just because he had maybe like 30% more words or whatever, 40%. I don't know the exact number, but what would it be? 50%? Yeah, it would be like a little over 50%. Because half of 220 is 110, so 330. So be like 58% or some garbage like that. But in any case, like I just really can't get around that fact. I think Gideon, if he had written the full like 340, 360, he would have taken this. But I think Curator, for what's dropped, I think Curator had the better verse overall. Even though pound for pound, it could be argued that Gideon Grimm won. Um, but for my vote, I've got to vote Curator for the greater effort and for the for the better told story. I mean, a lot of the detail that was gained was due to the additional words, but I think that's what I have before me is what I have to vote on, and I think that Curator won this battle. So my vote goes to Curator, and yeah, that's all. Hope you guys enjoyed that video voice feedback. I'm gonna go ahead and edit it, and I'm gonna get it posted up. I'm gonna have like a little bit of music or whatever in the background, but yeah, I think that should be sufficient. So hope you guys enjoyed. Keep the fire alive inside you. Peace.